Hey, Dark Horses, welcome back to the podcast. We are here with Professor Dude, as per usual. And today we are joined by a special guest, Professor Sergio.
Hey!
Hi, guys.
Yeah.
What's up, guys? It's been a while. I'm reading a sign. I don't know a bunch of this stuff, but Eric's holding up a sign that the Granello is a bad choice. Probably it's going into the mic. You can hear all the crunching.
Super crunchy. So we had you on, because we've known you a long time. We like you a lot. But also because you have some unique experiences as a black belt, but also as a police officer, peace officer,
Either one.
cop.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
All three of them.
Yeah. Are you a Denver PD now?
So I'm at the Denver Police Department now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I started there a year ago.
So
Before that,
and you switched from Aurora,
Commerce City.
Commerce City.
So I was in Commerce City like a little over 5 years before I switched over to Denver.
And were you a police officer somewhere else?
No,
was it
before
just
that,
those two?
no. It was just those two places.
Huh.
But yeah.
So, how's that going?
Yeah, it's weird. It's a weird job, man, for sure. And like in the recent climate, it's I don't know what to say.
Has it been
it's
more,
challenging?
Have you
Yeah.
felt like there's been a lot more scrutiny on you, a lot more pressure internally from the department,
Yeah, I mean,
public?
from the
What's your
public.
experience been? Excuse me. As far as that goes.
Yeah, so diving into that topic, it's been an upward trend as far as like a lot more scrutiny, which I'm not opposed to any of that. I'm sorry. I think the rise with like the technology that people have now, we have a supercomputer in our pockets. A lot more people are able to. I mean, people have seen a lot of instances in the past, and know. I mean, especially people in neighborhoods where people are over policed. They see all this stuff that happens when cops get their hands on people, or things happen when people start to get violent and cops start to tensions start to rise.
Yeah. It's gonna happen.
Now a lot more people are able to document it.
Yeah.
And so from there, in an instant, share it with the rest of the world. And so all that's just bringing a lot of things to light as far as like what's going on in these interchanges between the public and the police. And so that gets put on a national and a worldwide level, and people can see what's going on. And so yeah, people are like, what are you guys doing? Like, what are you guys doing? Like, what's going on? And yeah, I could tell you that there's 3 different sides to every single story. You know, so the optics of things can look really bad without the entire story.
Yeah, and
for the
no
most
one ever
part,
has any idea what happens before the camera gets turned on,
Yeah.
right? And generally don't even really find out that much about it, usually.
Yeah,
Just what they see on camera, and then they make their judgment,
Yeah.
and they
and a lot
move on or whatever.
Yeah, so it gets really complicated because sometimes the actual thing you'll see on camera is the obvious thing that looks really bad.
Yeah.
Like, for example, the stuff with George Floyd, that's absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
And in other instances, there's little things happening that people don't see, and it's hard to articulate. It's hard to explain. To explain, like, hey, this is what ended up happening that led up to this incident.
So, now do you think Jiu-jitsu has helped with those kind of things specifically? Because to me, that sounds like high-level Jiu-jitsu thinking, right? Where like small things are going on, subtle changes are happening, and that will determine
Yes.
what you do. And so something could be outwardly completely invisible, but evoke a very sudden and very violent reaction.
Yes.
Right? Like when I feel somebody tense to pull up out of my triangle, I snap the angle really quickly. And it's an invisible thing because they're tensing from their
and
So
from
they're
their
after
abdomen.
watching can't see that.
Yeah, they can't
it wouldn't
see
be-
the resistance to it. So that's a lot that goes into it. Exactly that.
You're trained to look for certain things and react to certain things that the normal people maybe wouldn't see, or certainly wouldn't register to them.
And so in jiu-jitsu, jiu-jitsu absolutely. When I started policing, just going back, I started jiu-jitsu 2005 and still training today. Got my black belt 7 years ago, almost 8 with Charles. And then going into cop work, I didn't even put a whole lot of thought into it. I was just I don't know what I want to do. I just want a stable job. It's interesting. Not doing a whole lot. Not that I'm not doing a whole lot, but it's mobile. I'm just out and about and not having to stay in an office. I did office jobs. And I'm I don't really like this. And I thought about law enforcement because one of our teachers was he was a police officer. So I was maybe something I could look into. So I didn't know anything about law enforcement. So when I started the process of going through that and went through an academy, I had this jiu-jitsu background going in, applying. I didn't really bring that outwardly, because they asked for a resume, hey, what's your experience and all this stuff. And I'd bring it up, but it wasn't something in my mind that was going to be as useful as core to how I interact with the public and do the job. I didn't think it was gonna be that important, and now 6 years into doing this work, it's absolutely one of the most important things that I attribute how I interact with the public because of what jiu-jitsu has done for me. Referring it to as an entity, because it's jiu-jitsu, the community that we build within ourselves and how we train and with the people that we train with. But jiu-jitsu has done, everything. The way I can go into a situation where people are super tense, they're way up here yelling at each other and about to go hands on with each other and fight with each other, and just know that I can go into that situation and be all right, if people start fighting or if they start fighting with me, I know my reaction. It's been built over 15 years of training and rolling and being in that combative situation over and over and over again, that I know how to deal with it and I know how to control this person and do it in a non-violent manner to keep them restrained, and everybody at the end of the day is going to be okay. Sadly, one person might end up going to jail, which sucks, but nobody's hurt, nobody's dead.
It's a huge level of confidence that I think a lot of cops don't have.
Yeah. And so, in my travels as a cop, it was quickly noted this dude's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. Let's bring him into training, and let's see if we can get him to train people and teach as a defensive instructor. And so I started that in Commerce City really early on. So I got brought on as an instructor. And from there, they just sent me to different trainings for the defensive tactics. So for res control, I did instructor training for, it's basically a form of Aikido, but melded for cop work.
Interesting.
And so that I liked that. That was pretty interesting, but at the same time, I tried to apply it in real life, and I was oh shit, Aikido. Aikido doesn't really work all that well, but that's also how we apply it and how it presents itself in this situation, So there's aspects that I do use from that defensive tactic field or system that I still apply to everyday stuff that I do. I've done Krav Maga which is just, it's not Israeli Krav Maga, but it's the way it's taught here. It's just violent, like just violent, like just bursts of energy to get out of a bad spot and just overpower the other person. Like it's a defensive thing. Like, hey, I'm being attacked. This person's punching me, kicking me, or trying to reach for my weapon. I gotta be really violent and get out of the situation and then reassess from there. I've done the Gracie Survival Tactics class, which is a really, really, really good class. I really like that. It opened up a lot of. I mean, it's a lot of really basic jiu-jitsu.
Survival tactics. Is it? What's it aimed at? Is it for police, military?
Yeah, it's all law enforcement. I think it was also developed at first for military at first, because I think the Gracie started with the military training them, and then over the years, the brothers Henner and
You're on.
Yeah, I think so. Hodian is the dad, right?
Yeah.
So Hidon and Henner, they run the program, and I got to go out to their school in California and witness them teach it, and it was really cool.
Did you experience the energy?
Yeah, it's really contagious, dude. They're really good instructors.
Yeah,
they're really good businessmen.
Yeah.
The class, the class was really good. But as condensed as it is, and I mean every system, every law enforcement school for defensive tactics I've gone to leaves something wanting because it has to be condensed. Which is another topic, because law enforcement training is condensed because people can't train. We can't afford to train people on a consistent basis. I'm gonna go down a rabbit hole with that one later on probably, but
yeah, whatever you want to get into. There's a lot of things we can touch on. I think that's a good one that maybe not enough people know enough about. So it'd be good to talk about is like how little training cops actually get before they're on the street.
Yeah.
And another like huge portion of that is how much they want to do.
Yeah.
It's like the training that's offered is not nearly enough, and then the training that people want to engage in or practice on a regular basis is abysmal. It's crazy.
Yeah, for sure. Another side of it.
Yeah. So man. There's a lot. There's a lot to unpack because there's a lot of. Not to be a Debbie Downer, but that's. I mean, there's a lot of people that wish to train and want to train, which is good. There's a lot of factors go into this stuff. So, as an instructor in Commerce City, I'd hold like free open mats. I like tell people, hey, like what I taught in class, like every year we'd be scheduled. So initially, Commerce City used to be known for their training. They would train a lot and they'd train combatives, but it was like super violent, like let's go all out and knock each other out,
bursting,
and like grapple and fight with each other. And there wasn't a whole lot of learning. It was a lot of really aggressive, overpowering. It'd be like, hey, this is what happens in a fight. You got to be ready for it. But at the same time, it's like, are we teaching anybody how to react to it? It's just instilling that shock factor.
Yeah. Then there's some learning going on, just going through that a couple times.
Yeah, for sure. And then we started just to evolve as we gone through different schools of training. Myself and another officer that were kind of the main instructors. We gelled really well, and we'd go off of each other really well. And the class we would teach was more not based off of that, but yeah, these are the techniques. These are going to be what we're going to be doing. So like learning how to get somebody's hands free from underneath them, because a really common thing that happens is once somebody's going to be placed under arrest, if they want to resist, they end up falling to the ground, or we end up falling onto the ground because it's really hard to handcuff somebody when we're standing. So we're trying to grab their hands while they're standing, we end up falling.
That makes sense.
And then they end up in the fetal position and like doing this thing and trying to get their hands out. So one of the things that we learned was just like how to deal with that. You know, there's different things we could do. We can aim for pressure points, or learn how to pry and open up a wedge and get an arm inside, and use your body weight to just maneuver it out. We teach something like that, and we kind of hold like a live scenario. Like, all right, I'm gonna give you resistance. Like, I'm not gonna do much else. I'm not gonna try and beat you up or anything like that. I'm just gonna give you resistance, so that you can work through your options. Like, apply the thinking of what we just learned to what we're doing, similar to what we do with class in jiu-jitsu, right? We'll do the drills and we'll apply some live drilling or live rolling. People are excited about it, and then we'll let them know, like, this isn't the end. Like, this isn't just the one time out of the year that we're going to train. Like, this, we need to practice this like a lot to get really proficient. Like, you can drill it once here, and it could probably stick with you when you go out in the street, but you need to repeat it, right, for the muscle memory, and so that it's almost a natural reaction. So when it does happen, it just happens without you thinking. And I throw that invitation out there. I'll be like, hey, like, it's free. Like, come out and train. And the response I got was like very few, and it's usually other officers that are really close with me. They're really close, and they're like, yeah, I'm interested, like, because I like you a lot, and we'll come train. And yeah, they enjoyed it, and they saw the efficiency of it, and it was just like the one time out of the week, an hour we'd train, and the more comfortable they felt being in that live scenario of rolling around and knowing where a bad spot is and getting out of it, and learning how to control somebody using hardly any strikes or just using maneuvering and opening up wedges. Yeah, later on they tell me, like, dude, like, that thing you taught us the other day of like the baseball slide of like opening up somebody's arms, like that happened to us the other day, dude. We just did what you taught us to do, and like it worked. And I was like, oh yeah, man, that's great. And that they feel that self-confidence. They feel themselves calm. They know, like, oh, if this goes bad or sideways, like I know I'm at least comfortable with where it might go if we end up on the ground, because I've been there. We've done it before.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there any emphasis on training, like range time, or like on a weekly basis? Are you guys expected to spend a certain amount of time on a range?
Yeah, so there's requirements for training each year, but it's, again, like, it's one time, like one time every blue moon. So like with Denver, we'll train like range time. We'll have a qualification. We have to shoot at a target, and it'll be once every 6 months, so twice a year. We have to do that. But it's just shooting at a still target with no other stressors. You know, it's just to make sure your aim is all right. It has to at least hit the silhouette and make sure it hits one round goes into the head, because they'll tell you like 2 rounds to the body, 1 round to the head, or whatever. It was
Mozambique drills.
Similar in Commerce City too, huh?
Mozambique drills.
Yeah. And so that, again, it's just catering to like the lowest level of lowest common denominator, right? Which is really, I mean, Denver's such a huge department, so we will run the gamut of who's working there, you know. So,
yeah. How many officers are in Denver PD, do you think?
I think like 1,600.
Holy shit! Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, and imagine like departments like New York and like Los Angeles who have 10,000 plus cops, the size of a small city.
Yeah, I mean, we ran into similar kind of things in the Air Force, where like we needed X amount of cops on flight at any given time, and since you need that many bodies, they've got to have all their things checked off, right? So like I need 8 fully functional cops, which means they need to have this training, all these boxes checked. And so in the effort to check all those boxes, you hit the minimum, you hit the whatever, right? So our training was the same kind of thing. Once a year, we would go out to the range, and it was basically just like a function check of your weapon, essentially, right? Yeah. Like, can you fill a magazine? If you pull the trigger until the magazine is empty, did your weapon explode? Nope. Okay.
Yeah.
You're qualified to work. And so it was a lot of like training was a chore. It wasn't like a part of the job that you took pride in or did well, or it was like,
It was
okay, it's training Tuesday, and I'm going to sit here and be bored for 2 hours and check the box and then go home.
I imagine that happens so much more in the military and maybe even the police department, where it's like such a big department and such an institution that you feel like you're being forced to, like you're a kid in school or something, and you're just like sitting through class just to get through it.
And that's all across my experience. It's been similar in Commerce City, and it's even worse in Denver. Yeah, dude, it's just like a chore. Like, people are like super hesitant, and like teaching DT classes, it was like initially people were hesitant, like, oh, DT, like, I haven't exercised, and I don't know how many since like the last time we had DT training, which was last year. And luckily, like, it was like, because we were like the instructors, we were really into it. Like, we really wanted people to learn, and we wanted them to grasp what we were teaching. So at the end of the DT class, people were like, and I don't know, like, I don't know if it's just us or it's just because a lot of things we focused on was ground fighting. Especially when I taught, it was a lot of we'll do stuff standing and weapon retention and whatever. But I'm like, a lot of the stuff we do always ends up on the ground. Like, we end up tackling people, we end up in the ground hugging people, and it's gonna end up on the ground. So we got to know how to maneuver and how to control somebody on the ground. And so we teach, and people were, at the end of the class, people were like super excited. People that used to like not want to train are like thankful. They're like, oh, like this was like really inclusive. Like, you guys didn't just like hammer into us and like demean us, because it's also like the macho culture. Like, gotta be super tough, and like people who aren't tough, we're just gonna cast them to the side, and they can be worthless somewhere else. We want all just the tough people, you know. No, it was just like we wanted everybody to learn these mechanics. It's again, jiu-jitsu is catered to learning how to use leverage, and it's basically for a smaller person. And yeah, people like that we used to be cast aside would like come up to us like, dude, like, this is very really well taught class. Not like it used to be, like where it was just like really demeaning. It was like we actually learned something useful that we can use.
That old school hard ass mentality.
Yeah, but then at the end of it was like, okay, but that's done for the year. We'll come back next year.
That was great. See you in 6 months. See you in a year.
And then, so yeah, the training, it's a lot of it, and fiscally, it's really hard to pay people. I think I don't know. That's way beyond my pay grade. I just imagine it's really hard to people to go train and train on a consistent basis. So it really falls on the individual officer to be like,
do it on their own time and
you need to do this yourself. Which was something I would tell them, like, hey, I will, like, whatever time works for you, like, let's make it happen. Like, I am a teacher at a school, like, come down and train. We'll, like, if you don't want to train in regular class, we'll train just us.
We got mat space right here.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Exactly. But yeah, like, it just wasn't a lot of numbers. And it's usually the numbers. It's the people that really want to and really are interested in training, which is good. Like, we want the people that want to train too, but at the same time, want to reach people that don't want to. Like, hey, this is important.
Well,
but also, there's a lot of things that fall into that, like ego falls into it. Family life.
Everyone's busy.
Really hard, and
afraid of getting injured, afraid of looking stupid.
Shift work isn't really conducive to that. Like, like a school isn't open when your day's off or when you're off. Like, you're kind of stuck at that point too.
Avoidance mentality.
Yeah, avoidance too.
They feel guilty, like they should be training more and they don't, and so they avoid it rather than get into it.
Yeah, that falls all across the board with just DT training, firearms training, even working on verbalizing stuff, talking to people, and not being so adversarial, because that happens a lot. Because again, we go into situations where it's it's already up here, and people are already adversarial, and our natural instinct is to just fall back on like becoming defensive. We're like, well, fuck you. Like, don't talk to me like that. I just got here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're gonna bring something up. Sorry.
No. You see people on the worst days of their life.
Yeah.
On a regular basis.
That sticks with us.
Yeah. So you used your jiu-jitsu in the line of duty?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Anything you can tell us about? Any words of wisdom or good stories or things not to do or I don't know, whatever.
Dang, man.
Should you fight the police?
Should you fight the police?
Gotta fight the cops, right?
Yeah, some cops need to get their ass whooped for sure. Like, but I don't know, man. 'Cause they come with their guns, so you don't know if they're gonna pull it on you. And no, I'm just kidding. I don't advocate for. Also, all these views are my own, not of the place that I work at. Just saying, but oh yeah, man. I've used it. I have to say I haven't used it like terribly a lot. I've used it several times. Well, I don't know what constitutes a lot. I don't know.
More than zero is more than I've used it
yeah.
as a police officer, having never been a police officer.
Where should I begin?
The
Story.
The thing where you get their arms out so you can cuff them. Did you get that from the Gracie survival?
Yeah,
because I saw
that one from Gracie.
I think Henner teach. I saw a video. I don't even know where I came across it. I watched it and I was like, oh, that all makes sense. I can see that is clearly pretty related to jiu-jitsu, although it's not something you do in a match. But
yeah, so I've used that once. Other times it's
your neon belly control is
belly, yeah,
kind of constant rotation.
So a lot of the jiu-jitsu I use is in my head is like it's just to smash the person on the bottom, just to stay heavy and just just take out all their energy. So
positional control.
A lot of it, yeah. And it's a lot is just like messing with somebody's face, like, and I'm not punching, but I just will slide my shin over their head or their face, or like stick my hands in somebody's face or their head and push away, and it's kind of jarring.
Sounds familiar.
People that haven't rolled with me, like a lot of the students or hobbyists, like roll and they're like, what's this dude doing? He's a jerk, man. Like I'm like, I'm sorry, man. Like like this is just ingrained, but
this is how I roll. Congratulations.
Yeah. So last time I used jiu-jitsu out in the street was, I'm gonna say like 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, like the beginning of February. There's a lady. So the story with this lady, the background with her, she's got some mental health issues, that are undiagnosed, which is, yeah, man. There's a lot of stuff that falls on cops too, which is another rabbit hole. That it's hard for us to deal with because we can't diagnose it, we can't fix it, and our only response to a lot of things is just using violence when violence is imminent, you know.
Yeah.
And so this lady, what her deal was since last summer. So there's a barbershop next to her house, and what she does, she believes that the people that took over this building with their barbershop, which is a Mexican-owned barbershop, and most of their clientele are all Latino and black people. And so she got it in her head that it's a front for a meth lab. And so the first time I went out there, it was like this customer from the barbershop called 911. He's like, this lady like totally spit on me. She was like taking photos of my car while I was getting my hair cut. And she came out and I asked her like, what's going on? And she spit on me, and then she walked away to her house, and then they called us, and so we go over and interview the guy. And
never spit on someone with their fresh haircut. That's not cool.
No, she ended up spitting on like the dude's gown, like he had the barber cut gown.
Maybe best case scenario there.
Yeah, and then like so her thing was like, because
Still got the cops called.
Yeah, her thing was like, in her mind, she felt like she was a vigilante, and so she would go out and like take photos of every single car that would stop in front of this barbershop. And so I talked with the guy that called us, and he's telling me like, dude, like the barbers warned me like, hey, we got problems with this lady. We're tired of her. We're trying to figure out what we can do.
It's bad
And
for business.
there's very thin line because this lady's walking a thin line of like criminality and I don't know, man. It's hard because it's something that we can build to, but basically I talked to the dude and he's like, yeah, I'm getting my haircut, and she comes out and takes photos of my car, and I'm like, what the heck, dude? Like I don't like just imagine like we're sitting here and some freaking random person's like taking photos of your car. Like I had that happen in my neighborhood, like where I live. I'm like, what are you doing? Like what is that for? Like I didn't I didn't do anything. Like what are you doing? What are you taking photos of my car for? But I didn't react to that. I was just like, put my hands up. I'm like, what? And then the lady just kind of looked at me and just walked away. And I was like, okay, whatever. But yeah, his response was like, from whatever environment he's in, he's like, I'm gonna challenge this person, like, because that's what we do.
Yeah.
Like, this is like, you're infringing on like my property and me. Like,
Yeah.
it's an extension of me. So he goes out and confronts her. He's like, what are you doing? And she takes her photos, walks away. And he follows her, and he keeps following her. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And she ends up spitting on him. So at the end of that, basically he didn't want to press charges, and we're like, okay. So we talked to her, and she gives us a story of like, yeah, this place is like, take a look at everything. Like, take a look at this business. It's a meth lab. Like they had like the XL people or some city people like have to work on pipes. Because like there's too much stuff going on that it's disrupting like service, and it's because of that meth lab.
Excel's in on it, huh?
And
You heard it here first, folks.
they're in on the meth game lab.
Uh-huh.
So she's
They
like,
weren't making enough money.
she's like,
No.
like I'm gonna do what I gotta do to protect my neighborhood. And like we asked her like, what
She
do you
says
think?
to the
Yeah,
police
she says
officer.
to us, yeah. And she's got a sign in front of her house that says "Black Lives Matter," "Love is love," and all the like the slogans that are pretty progressive.
Yeah.
Which in my head I'm like, this is running contrary to what you're doing.
Yeah.
But in her head she thinks it's a meth lab, and I tell her because I walked in the barbershop. It's a small area, like there's nothing there. Like there's a bathroom in the back and a sink, and the barber chairs and stuff. There's like nothing back there. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, and she tells us, yeah, these cars that come up, they're like, they don't stay for very long, and then they leave. But like also it's COVID.
20, 25 minutes max.
Like yeah. And I'm like, it's COVID too, because they get out. People have to come in. Like they have to wait in their car, and they come in, and it's only a certain amount of people inside that they can allow to cut the hair. So like they're in there and then they're out. So yeah, obviously. So she keeps doing that. She's done that, and she's done it, and she's done it over again to every single customer that comes through. Yeah, man, this is a long-winded story. So,
But you got called back out there, right?
yeah, we
This was
called
going
back
somewhere.
out. So this goes on for months, and we walked over the options with the barbers that are there at the shop. I'm like, hey, you can get a protection order. Just put videos on the front and just keep harassing. But again, people are allowed to do all kinds of stuff out on the street, and she's able to go up because it's public. She can go up and take photos of it. Not the wisest idea, no, but she can do it. And from there, we get called back. Finally, this person, she goes out and takes photos of this person's truck, and then he rolls down his windows because he's waiting for his appointment. And he asks her, "Can I help you?" And she goes to the rear of the truck, takes the photos of the license plates there, and as she's walking back, she spits at his truck, but the spit ends up on him, and he gets out, and he's ready to maul her. And then the barbers come out, and they're like, hey, hold on, just call the cops. Like, just call the cops. So he calls us, and we go. And finally, we're like, all right, like, she finally hit somebody with spit. And he's like, yeah, I want to press charges. I'm like, good, we can charge her now. So we go up to her house, and we talk with her. We charge her, which nowadays, because of different levels of offenses, we issue a summons to appear in court. So we issued her a summons to appear in court for the assault on spitting on the dude. And so then me and my partner, we end up circling back to take their statements and write stuff down and take video statements and stuff. So when we circle back, she comes out back to the middle of the street, and just starts like taunting the dude and taunting the barbers and like just in the middle of the street causing traffic to back up. And so we're trying to get her off the street, and she's like, "No, I'm gonna take my photos. I'm gonna take my photos of the truck that I allegedly sped on." And we're like, "Okay, take your photos, and you need to go to the back to the sidewalk. Like you're blocking traffic." We tell her this repeatedly, and what she ends up doing, she ends up taking the video and starts videoing us. And we're like, "Take your photos and go to the side of the street. Go to the sidewalk." She doesn't. And so my partner was pretty good with the verbalization. Me, I was like ready to just like take her to the sidewalk. My partner's like, "All right, I'm gonna escort you to the sidewalk," and she just starts again. It's the minimal. Like she tenses her body, and she's like digging her heels into the ground. And so from there, what I end up doing, there's a technique. I sweep her arm, so we're both on one arm. I sweep one arm and I go through the back. It's called like a single wing. Right? So I like go over the top of her left arm and run it through the back to try and connect with the other arm. My partner has that arm, and he's like, "I got this arm under control," which is another topic of like communicating with my partner and let him know like, "Hey, this is what I need to control." Like he's doing his own thing, and I'm like, "Oh, this is not working all that well." And he's like trying to control it, and he's like all doing this thing, and I'm like trying to control this. And I'm like, we're not gonna get her in handcuffs because that arm is like loose and he's going all over the place with it. And so at that point in time, my partner's like, "We need to take her down." I was like, "Cool." So from there, because I was behind her, I just bumped the back of her knee with my knee. It's just like knee bump, so that again she loses her balance a little bit, and from there I just drop her onto her butt, which is and by definition is a takedown. And with Denver, it's takedowns considered a use of force. So from there, we have to fill out more paperwork. But nice and clean. Like she's down to a seated position. I grab my handcuffs, and my partner is able to put the other arm on the ground and like hold it in place enough for me to put one handcuff on. So I put one handcuff on, and I grip it with my other arm that's still blocking this other arm. She tries to stand up, and from there, because I'm right behind her kneeling too, and she tries to stand up, and from there, I've wrapped my leg around for a hook, but the hook goes over the top for like the figure four, body lock. So I do that, and that keeps her on the ground, and I roll her over to face down, and I hold her and just stay there, let her get tired, and she's like, fuck you guys, like that's a good setup, like you guys set me up so you can take me to jail, blah 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 blah. And so she's like, doing her thing. She gets tired, and then my partner is like, "You guys, hey, should we get more cops here? Like, do we need more cops?" I'm like, "No,
For what?
like, we're fine." And so from there, like I have control of the handcuff. I just switch my hands up and I let go of the figure four. She's too tired to do anything else, so she's compliant with the other one. Put it behind her back and cuff her. We roll her and pick her up and stuff her in the back of the patrol car. And I mean, she's wild. Like she's doing this thing and trying to keep us from putting her in there. So we just got to make sure that we don't get kicked in the face. So we stuff her real quick and then just close the door.
Did you get spit on?
No spit.
There you go. That's good.
But yeah, the end result. I mean, she didn't get hurt. It was nice and controlled. And again, like if we didn't know how to control, like it could have been like a tackle. Like I'm tackling this person, we're end up on the ground, and I'm slamming them on the ground. People get head injuries or for like an obstruction of the roadway charge.
Yeah.
But it was more than that, right? Like there's a history to what's going on there.
Yeah.
But the charge, it was like in addition to the first summons that we gave her, it was resisting arrest, but also the original obstructing traffic. Because that was the one that we made clear to her, like, "Hey, you're blocking traffic right now."
Yeah.
And cars were having to swerve out of the way. But in the end result, like I've talked to Charles about this, did we help resolve the problem? I don't know. Does jail help address that lady's mental health issues or what she's doing to the neighborhood. I hope so.
Yeah.
Like,
Could be.
we're the initial response to it, but
It should be a wake up call.
yeah.
Was it seen as that? Maybe.
She was on the way to the jail. She was just like, "You guys are punks. Like, you guys are worthless." Like, it's.
Talking
I mean,
all
we
the
get
shit.
that a lot. A lot of people do that. It's a defense mechanism. And I don't really let it get to me a whole lot. Yeah, that's just one story. Got a lot.
So I mean, it's a good example though, right? Like, if you had two officers there that didn't train, that didn't know what they were doing, that didn't, who I've seen a lot of this kind of mentality. I mean, quite a bit in the Air Force where people just kind of like hide behind their uniform, right?
Yes.
Like I'm wearing this.
I see that a lot.
And whatever, like I'm wearing this on my arm or I've got my gun on my hip. So obviously I'm right and I'm untouchable and I don't have to do anything else. I'm wearing my armor and so that's all the prepared I need to be.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean if there were two officers like that on scene, you could have had a very different kind of situation. Right. And just your guys' question was a good example, right? Do we need more cops? Right. So if it was two people that were untrained, it could have been a situation where it was, four officers on a little old lady.
Yeah.
And we kind of touched on it earlier, but how do we avoid situations like that? How do we get more situations that went like that one, that went well?
Yeah.
Right? 'Cause, I mean, it's a use of force. You did have to put hands on somebody, and that's not ideal. But
it was done in the least violent way possible.
Yeah, and it was done in a technical way by somebody that knows how to apply good technique. And so just kind of a lot of things went really right in that scenario. Have you seen any ways where we can push, like, and I don't know if this is even possible, like, as a society, but is there ways where we as a society can push for more and more good scenarios like that, more and more best case scenarios, right? So I think we touched a little bit on the training side, but like
what can we
stupid
do?
question, but why don't all the cops do good cop?
So I think a good, oh man, it's another loaded one, man. That cause there is a stubborn mentality, a stubborn attitude with cop work for sure. Things do change, like, over time, and they will accept these changes begrudgingly. But it becomes, dude, like, sadly, like, it takes a lot, but it's begrudgingly. Like a cop mentality, the cop attitude is like, not to speak negative, like too negatively, but it's a lot of it's like we're right, like we know what's best, like society's what's wrong. Everything's wrong with society because of the way things are going. They're going against my ideals and what we know and what we see out in the streets. Like, we see the absolute worst. Like, we see really bad situations, but is that all that life has to offer? No, not at all. We see some bad stuff for sure.
Could be hard not to get jaded by that.
Yeah, and we have to be able to acknowledge, like not everything is as bad. Like, not that everything's as bad as it seems, but I got to be able to look through things at an open lens. Like, I'm not always right. Like, what do I need to understand to, like, talk to somebody who's, like, absolutely at their worst? They're screaming because they're in a bad spot. Like, what are they trying to tell me? Because I know that they're just yelling. They might be mad at me or they might be mad at the uniform, but there's something that's there that I need to listen to, And I may not be able to connect with that on a verbal level because that person something's wrong in their, like, the way that their brain is firing at that point in time, because something may not be making sense because of whatever they've gone through in their life or what substances they may be on at that point in time too, which I don't know if that answered the question. But at the same time, like there is a big push for jiu-jitsu training because I see a lot of on especially on social media. Is I'll see not just like the Henner brothers, but there's a lot of pro police pages that like for training that will push like jiu-jitsu is like as close as you can get to like learning how to fight out in the street and control yourself amongst other like stuff like CrossFit and other training stuff. But yeah, I see like a big push, and it might just be because my Instagram page is like catered to that. It might be that, but like a lot of my friends, like a lot of people that I work with, will follow that stuff too, and they start to realize like, oh, this is something that I really need to learn. Like Tyler, one of my coworkers, he explained to me. Like I remember getting into a resistance with somebody, and it just worked us because like he's kind of a strong dude, but like, and it wasn't because our again policies will dictate at which level of force we can use, like punches and strikes, and use tasers and whatnot. So like at a level of resistance where somebody's just tensing up and not wanting to comply with what we're saying and wanting to put their hands in a better position for us to handcuff them, we can't throw strikes, not in the city of Denver. So we've like, and again, that leaves officers like, what options do you have like to put somebody who's just defensively resisting? And I can't use strike like what they used to do. Like what we used to do is knee the shit out of people and punch them until they give us our hands. And that's also a failure on, I think, the department is like, all right, we can't do this and this and this for this situation. So what are we going to use? And that was never really properly addressed when I went through training, which is addressed by jiu-jitsu. So yeah, my coworker was like, yeah, we were working, like we were trying to get this dude into custody, and it just like we couldn't use strikes because he was just trying to keep his hands away. Like I didn't know what to do, and that triggered something in my head. Like I need to learn something. Like I need to learn something that helps me with this. And he came across like wanting to learn jiu-jitsu.
Boom.
And so yeah. I was like, yeah, I do jiu-jitsu. He's like, cool. like, I want to learn. I'm like, all right, dude, bring it in.
So,
Yeah.
Should cops learn chokeholds? I'm just full of loaded questions today.
It's a, I don't know if I'm using the term correctly, like a double-edged sword or not, but
Oh yeah.
My like, and I've varied and I've gone back and forth on it. Like my initial stance, the one that I'm usually on, is no. Like so the way it would be taught is usually I just show it in a defensive tactics class, and we'll
That one class a year, and then send them on their way.
Yeah, and it's just training it. Like, hey, this is how you apply it. Try it on your partners. But I tell them like, hey, you need to apply it. Make sure that your bicep is on one side of the carotid, forearm is on the other side. You're not doing anything here because per state law, like that's considered a chokehold if I'm doing damage to the trachea, and that's illegal. And so I got to make sure, like, hey, make sure that this is where the placement is. But if you do it in a real life situation, like your arm's going to be where, like, it's going to end up in different spots. A lot of times our forearms end up here, and that's how we finish the choke. So I've got to be like cognizant of like, oh, my arm's not in the proper placement. I've got to move their head a little bit over to the side and get it where I need it to be. And doing that in a live scenario, like in a live instance, like, because you got to worry about different things. Like, so I can tell another story where, so I was working in Commerce City last year. I found this stolen truck at a adult video store.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so this place, oh my god, man. So I used to find stolen trucks, like wanted murderers, and a lot of people wanted for heinous crimes there. But it was like a really hidden place, and guys would go there with their escorts. And
So we would need the address.
it's
The specific
yes,
address.
it's
What
to
was
be able
the
to find
phone
it?
number to this place again?
Called Romantics in the corner
With an
of,
X?
yes.
Uh.
It's in It's in the heart of Commerce City. I don't know if you want to go there. Yeah.
Romantics.
Yeah, man. So yeah, I find this stolen truck, and I'm in an unmarked car, and I'm just sitting there. It's like four in the morning, and it's closer to the end of our graveyard shift. So like all of my coworkers like at the station, like wanting to go home, like sitting there by myself. And so this truck pulls up and backs up into the front of the store, and like the way it's set up, it's like right next to a truck stop lot. And then the parking lot is like guided by some Jersey barriers around the back, so that people can park around the back or they can park in the front. So he backs up into the spot, and they're there for like 15 minutes. And I see two people, like looking at my binoculars, and I see two people in there, and the truck's like turning on, turning off, turning on, turning off. I'm like, okay. And then finally they get off the truck, and then they go in. So there's a guy that I saw, he was driving the truck. They drove up, he was in the driver's seat, and then I assumed was his girlfriend. What I don't know. When we contacted them, that's what they were. Like that was his girlfriend. There's like all kinds of stuff, history with them. And so they go into the store, and my usual tactic was to either, like in that kind of scenario, is like I'll go up and check to see if the truck's open or the car's open, and disconnect the car battery like really quick, because usually they're there for like an hour or more than an hour, or like 15 minutes.
Searching for videos
in the private booths upstairs, or enjoying a film with their loved one,
Yeah.
in the privacy of like a 6 square foot room.
It has the little viewing hole on the side, though.
Sticky. It's like sticky in there. I got
You can look through the little viewing
got
hole.
good stories about that place, man. We'll continue with this. Yeah, dude. So, all right. So that's the usual thing I do. So I went around the back of the store, and I crept up the front, and I get the license plate, and I read it off to our dispatch. And like, oh yeah, it's stolen. I'm like, oh cool. So I go up and I pop the hood, and so I just wait for my partners to get there. Because I didn't have my tools with me yet to disconnect the battery. So partners get there, and like some really new cops too, like 2 years on, like don't know a lot about that stuff either. So so they came up, and I tell them, hey, one of you just bring your patrol car up, block it from the front. I'm gonna go get here's what we'll do. Like I tell them, like, we're gonna go inside the store. If I see them on the ground floor, like shopping around, we'll contact them there, and we'll try to put them in cuffs in there, and all will be good. We'll take them out. If they're not on the ground floor, that means they're upstairs in an arcade booth watching a video, and they're going to be taking their time. So then at that point in time, we'll disconnect the battery, and we'll just wait. We'll wait them out. And usually at that point, because it's super common, like people in stolen stuff will drive off. And people don't want to be arrested. I wouldn't either.
Yeah.
And so when we start to go inside the store, they're already coming out. They already bought their stuff. So they're already coming out. And I'm like, oh, hey. And the guy's like looking at me like, huh? Are you talking to me? Like, oh, yeah, you. Like, I want to talk to you for a second. He's like, oh, okay. And so we come out of the store, like right next to the truck, and we sit him down on the parking blocks. We sit him down, take his backpack off, and he's already like doing this, like, he knows what's going to happen, like, but he's trying to come up with a plan on how to get out of that situation. And I'm telling him, like, sit down. Like, he's like, what's going on? It's like, I'll explain in a second. I need you to sit. And he finally sits down, take his backpack off, grab the little baggie of goodies that he got from the store, and toss it to the side. I tell him, like, I'm going to put you in handcuffs. You're under arrest. I'll explain here in a second. Just do what I tell you. Like, I need you to put your hands behind your back. And at that point in time, I got one hand behind his back, and the other one, so there's 3 of us. 2 others were with the girl, and she was compliant. They're already putting her in handcuffs. And I like look at the other dude. I'm like, dude, like, I need you over here. And he's like, oh, okay. And then he goes over and tries to help me out. And like the guy's like doing this thing, like he's like kind of trying to come up with a plan. So finally, we try to put his hands behind his back, but then he just does a quick maneuver, tries to stand up and tries to run away. But I was able to catch him. So I go seatbelt grip. So I go over his shoulder and grab. and I loop my leg around for a hook. So for like the traditional, I don't know what the takedown is called, but I like it a lot. It's where I seen Hensel do it in an MMA fight, where like he goes for a single leg, but he shoots up to the back, and he goes seatbelt grip, wraps the leg around, and like just crosses it through for like a hook, and he'll straighten out that other leg, and it'll just drive. It's like a driven takedown to the ground. Yeah, the broomstick takedown. So I try to do that, but again, with untrained cops, I don't blame them because they're trying to help with what they know. And that's where I'm trying to go, but ends up with the other guy grabbing onto the dude and pulling him in another direction. And I'm like, oh my God, dude. Okay. So I was trying to stay on. And finally I tell my partner, like, hey, dude, just let go a little bit and let me drive forward a little bit. So my partner like finally like snaps out of it and he's like, okay. And he lets go and finally I get the broomstick takedown. So we go to the ground. I end up with the guy on top of me with my back on the ground. My partner is now just dog pile on top. So it's cops on top, dude in the middle, and then me on the bottom. And I'm like getting tired because like
everybody's pounds of people on top of you.
Yeah, I'm like getting tired. I'm like, oh my God, dude. And the guy like he's trying to like wiggle his way out from my grip, and I see him like reach underneath the stolen truck, and I'm like trying to reach, like I'm trying to look underneath to see if he's reaching for anything. And now he's just like trying to grab onto something so he can pull himself out of the grip. And at that point in time, I'm like, okay, like how much longer is this gonna last? And my partner's like punching away and telling the dude like, stop resisting. Finally, like they're like gassing out, and finally they get out of their tunnel vision. They're like, Sergio, are you okay? I'm like, no. And I tell them like, just get off, dude. And then so they get off. They give me the space to work. So then finally, I'm able to flip the dude over into a prone, like flat face down. And I got my hooks in, and then I lift my hips up a little bit. So I tell our other partner, I'm like, hey, swipe his waistband real quick. Make sure there's no weapons in his waistband or anything like that. And at that point in time, he says, like, I have a gun. And at that point in time, like for Commerce City at the time, it was the carotid. We could use it for like a defensive resistance, like if somebody was like just trying not to get put into custody. And so that changed this year to now like the carotid is no go. But like as soon as he said he had a gun, like right away, like it had the seatbelt grip, and that just moved it up, and then I moved his face right over the top, and it was like just started to squeeze, and he's like keeping his hands inside here, and I asked him like, where's the gun at? He's like, it's in my front, and he's like keeping his hands here. That it felt like it was like, is this dude reaching for it? If he is, then I'm squeezing as tight as I can. But at that point in time, again, because a lot of years of training, a lot of rolling, I was like able to slap it on, and I know what positioning I needed it to. I moved his head wherever I needed it, so I can get one bicep and then on the carotid and the other forearm on that other side, and just squeezed. And then right away, that dude was like, his reaction was like his hands out to the side, like he's like, I'm done. He actually tapped on the ground. He's like, I'm done. So then I released the pressure, and then I lift my hips up, and I tell my partners, because I've had this happen too in other instances where I've done the carotid, where I've been trained like how to just pop off the body and control the arms and handcuff, and I've had it go terribly wrong because the person will get back, like will regain their consciousness and will go back to fighting. So I'll just lift my hips up, but keep the carotid in place. And I was telling my partner, like, hey, handcuff this other hand, the left hand that's over here. But I think they were just like super gassed, so they were like struggling with the handcuff, and like, it's just like fumble like butterfingers. And I'm like waiting, of course, waiting. And finally get the handcuff on, and I tell him like, hey, move the hands underneath my hips so it's behind his back. And there was actually a handcuff on the right hand, because the other third person had slapped the handcuff on at some point in time, but that one we couldn't control or whatever was going on. So we bring that one in and finally handcuff the dude. At my instant reaction at the time was just like, I'm frustrated. Like Like, I was like frustrated that it took that long. Because I knew like I could probably had it under control like pretty quick. But at the same time, like in retrospect, like I don't know exactly because he had a weapon on him. That's a scary thing to also consider. And knowing where to place your body and knowing like to stay out of the line of the barrel, which is another entire aspect of gunfighting and grappling too. That needs to be considered. Like a lot of people. I mean, especially this year, the amount of guns that we've taken off the street is astronomical. But yeah, that I feel like in that instance, like deadly force could have. I articulated like this. I felt this dude reaching underneath him. I could articulate like, hey, he said he has a gun. It's in his front. He's reaching in his hands. I could have easily just like popped up and just pulled my gun out and started shooting, or giving him verbals like, "Hey, get your hands out! I'm going to shoot you." Give him the chance to, but at the same time, it's also an amped situation. Like we're fighting, like adrenaline's going and everything's like so in that little space that a reaction be like again, it's a fight or flight.
You couldn't
feeling.
necessarily see if you had his gun out yet or where it was
Yeah,
aimed.
so he's reaching for it, and he specifically told me it's in my front because it was in his jacket.
Yeah.
I could just pull it out and just start shooting, but I felt like, you know what, he's trapped. They have his hands trapped. I'm gonna go for this instead, because I feel like better control with this rather than just killing a dude or trying to just using deadly force, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, like having a cop that to train them once on a carotid out of the year, and then having them apply it on the street, recipe for disaster, man. Like people, like it's like anything that we need to do. We need to train on it extensively, and to be able to just have the forethought to like, all right, my placement is wrong. I need to adjust it and put it wherever, because it's a great tool. Like I felt like, man, they're taking this away. Like this is such a great tool I can use, but that's me, just one who, I mean, there's tons of black belt cops out there, but that's very few of us out of the hundreds of thousands of cops out there that don't have the training and the forethought to be able to piece that together and use it efficiently and effectively. I've seen it. Yeah, I've seen people try to apply it, and it doesn't look good.
Yeah.
It's not applied well.
That's a situation where I think I see a lot of it. I mean, from a very lay perspective, in relation to police, and I saw a lot of it in the Air Force, where fucking brain just melted right out my ear. I had a whole thought, and then there was a truck that went by on the road, and it erased my
Lay perspective, Air Force, chokehold. Words, thoughts, behaviors.
There were words and thoughts. Fuck. All right.
Clappy sounds.
Yeah.
No.
Lordy. All right. Never mind.
Segue.
Yeah.
Yeah, man,
Something about use of force and training and police.
Yeah, there's a lot to it, man. There's just the topic on use of force itself is there's a lot to think about, and then on top of it too is like the system of policing itself and the society that we're in. Yeah, that's too much. It's too much.
Yeah. But I think that's kind of where I was. That's kind of where I was going. Where we do have cops that are black belts.
Yeah.
And that's a really positive step, right?
Yeah.
Like we should have more of that. We should like police officers that are better trained and better equipped is a good idea.
Yes.
And it's really kind of the silver bullet. Like that's what we need. Education will fix this. We'll fix all of our things. But that kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier in reconciling, like if the ideal situation is a small, smart police force that are all black belts and can really like do their thing, how do we move that needle closer? And is that actually plausible? Because I think what I saw a lot of is that in a lot of cases it's not even really possible to move that in a real significant way because the system is built to play to a lowest common denominator.
Yeah.
It's not built for a college educated cop that knows what they're doing.
It's not built for lifting that lowest common denominator either. I think that is a huge thing. Like, hey, this person's struggling. They're not that good. We shouldn't just like. I mean, yeah, there should be that standard, but also working on lifting that standard and working with lifting them up too. Like, hey, you can do better. Like, we can help. Like, you can be helped. Like, I'm that hopeful that like, yeah, we can, like, the person that's really dumb. I'm sorry for a lack of better way to explain it. Like, we can help this person to lift them up and lift them to come up to the level that we need them to. There's a lot more to that too, man. Because culture with policing is very much like, in order to do that job is like very much it's making sure we separate that line, that the people that we have to deal with, we make sure that they're the other, like we consider them like the enemy. Like, we have to go out and arrest people and take away their freedoms. It's a nasty thing. Like, a country where we absolutely value the ability to pray how you want to pray and to do the things that you want to do. Like, we set some standards and laws in place that can take that away at a whim. It's a great responsibility, and like, you can't let that weigh on a person because it makes a person overthink stuff, and so a good way to help a person do that job is just othering like, it's just anybody that has warrants or anybody that commits a crime is just a nasty freaking person, like
scum of the earth.
Yeah, like,
doesn't that swing it really far the other way though? Doesn't that underthink every situation?
Yeah,
right. Is he just like, oh, okay, they're wrong, I'm right,
yes,
I'm the cop?
And that's what it boils down to, right. And that creates that culture of just like
us versus them. When I lived in Brazil, it was like the same problem, only worse. Like, police were like super low paid, and then they had like these really small cars, and then they were super corrupt. Like,
that's
like,
right.
You got stopped. Like, pretty much any problem you had was just an amount of dollars for you to fix it.
And
by fix it, I mean like yeah. And then so you talk to like a Brazilian, you're like, look, there's no way to get better police unless you pay them more money. They're like, oh no, they're corrupt. Like, there's no way. Like, pay them the least amount possible. I'm like, then you're never gonna get police that aren't corrupt.
Yeah,
you can't pay a corrupt police officer.
Yeah, you're just gonna
that encourages them.
Just throw that money away. I'm like,
you look at early policing.
How do you get out of that? How do you get out of that problem?
I don't know how we did it. Well, in general, because in the U.S. still there's a lot of police departments that really pay really bad. People still do the job. Like, I don't know. I don't really know, like, have firsthand experience of that, because I've worked in metro areas that play pretty decent, and that's usually where the draw is like, come work for the cities. They're going to pay you more, and it's hard to retain, like, really, like, I don't know that there's corruption. I've read stories of, like, chiefs and sheriffs that, like, extort money, like, usually from small towns.
Yeah, I mean, corruption's going to exist in any system,
like,
in any institution.
Even the beginning of, like,
in any system with money.
Yeah.
I mean, any system with human beings.
Yeah. At our core, we're like savages, man. At the end of the day. Yeah, because like early days and like early New York Police Department, man. If you watched Gangs of New York, yeah, man. Like, cops probably they didn't get paid shit, and they were like the scum of the earth too. They were like Irish people that nobody liked, and they were just out there scamming people because they had the power to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, in America now, it seems like it's hard to make that argument that like police need more money, and they need more focus on training regularly. More money needs to go to social workers and like mental health professionals so that they don't have to handle, the crazies out there, because that's not their job.
Yeah.
Their job is to deal with violent people. But if there's no social workers to deal with it, then they have to deal with it. But they have a gun on them, so if a crazy person acts crazy, they now have to respond to that, knowing that they have a gun on their hip, and they have to respond in a specific way because of that.
The catch to that too is a lot of times when people end up calling 911 is when things have hit rock bottom, and the crazy person has gotten to the point where like it's absolutely chaos. Like they've gone to the point of like being violent, and like, are we gonna send a social worker to a violent situation?
Social worker and a cop.
Yeah.
Right?
So
Why not?
here in Denver, what we do is we team up with the Denver Mental Health Clinic. So what we have is like a mental health clinician that rides with an officer. So if there's like a mental health situation, like somebody's needing some help with a mental health crisis, that usually, hopefully, if that officer's available with the clinician, they'll respond to that, and they'll have, again, the cop will be there to make sure that things are kosher, and usually it's with another cop as well.
Wow.
But the clinician will lead in like interviewing the individual and see what services they may need. Which is a good step forward too. They also have like Denver's dealing with the really bad homelessness right now. Just like people can't afford to live here, and COVID, and people losing their jobs. And
I want to ask you about the serial killer so bad. Well,
I don't know
I don't
know nothing about serial killers. Dude.
No,
that's like a dying fad, man. It's like mass shooters now, dude.
Well, I read somewhere at any given point in America, there's 25 to 30 active serial killers.
I don't know of any recent cases of serial killers.
I've heard from a couple people,
like rapists. Yeah.
I've heard from a couple people that had connections to police. I can't remember if one of them was police, but they said there was a guy killing homeless people here in Denver. They said they were left-handed because they were sticking a blade up into their throat here on the right side. But then there's whatever. My understanding was they were keeping that out of the papers because it was a serial killer. They don't want to bring more attention to it. But, and again, I haven't heard anything directly from the newspaper, so I don't know.
I haven't heard anything. Yeah, that's the first time I've heard about that.
Dun, dun,
Yeah.
dun.
They're not even telling us.
Yeah, that's it. It's conspiracy.
Yeah.
It's a double secret serial killer.
Yeah.
Dang, man. Or it might be one. It might be
They're
somebody.
in with the.
They're in with us.
Yeah.
Within the police or the city.
Or they're in the Illuminati. So
Oh,
they're
that
being
too.
protected by the police.
QAnon.
Yeah, QAnon. That's right. They're in the child trafficking ring.
Oh yeah. God, that's some scary stuff. Yeah. Oh man.
Some mysteries remain.
Yeah.
So, like we've got lots and lots of students and lots of non-law enforcement viewers.
Yeah.
But folks that are interested in jiu-jitsu, right? Folks that already have a mind for self-defense.
Yeah.
As a high-level self-defense expert, what
What
would you tell people? What's the way to stay safe?
Just Aikido wrist locks and wrist locks all the time?
It's being aware, and it's best way to stay safe is Aikido wrist locks,
Yes.
foot locks,
Yes. Foot
doing
locks.
the rolling leg lock stuff.
Imanari roll?
Yeah, that thing. It's high percentage out in the street.
Perfect.
No.
Perfect
No,
self-defense move.
I'd say awareness is a big thing. Is just being aware of your surroundings.
Street smarts.
Yeah, seeing. I mean, it's sometimes like you'll be able to just pick up on things that may be out of the way. For example, with self-defense with driving, it's like I make sure, like, even though a red light turns green at an intersection, I make sure, like, I don't see a car, like, driving, like, 50 miles an hour, not seeing that it's a red light for them, and they're just going to blow the intersection before I go. I got to make sure. We got in the accident. You and me got in that accident a while ago, but that's because I couldn't see out of that car that was on the left side.
He blew all the way into, like, the right-hand lane, too. He blew through a couple lanes to get to you.
Yeah, it was just making sure, like, even with driving, just, like, looking and paying attention to your surroundings, not being zoned in on just your own world. Which, I mean, we, throughout our lives, we'll kind of go about our day and do the things that we do and just know, like, things, like, meld together and days become similar and we just kind of get stuck in just our own world. It's just paying attention to your surroundings, not always being, like, vigilant, like, oh my god, somebody's gonna attack me, but it's just like, hey, there's stuff going on, there's a lot of traffic, there's people on that side of the street, they look like they're having a good time, or somebody that's, like, following me from, like, 6 blocks away, and, like, that's kind of alarming, and that should raise, like, a flag, you know. And, like, having a plan. Specifically for jiu-jitsu is just do more jiu-jitsu, man. Like, have a good takedown, have a good fallback on like a takedown, pulling somebody in the guard and having a quick submission to go to put somebody to sleep. Also practice your chokes, because that will absolutely put somebody out. Again, you can blow somebody's elbow out or a shoulder, but if they're running on adrenaline or some unknown substance, like, they may not even have pain receptors to feel it and will continue going.
And could quite possibly go to sleep faster.
Yeah,
their heart's
that
pumping.
too. So, like, on depressants, if somebody's, like, drunk, they'll go to sleep, like, pretty quick, and it'll take them longer to get out of their sleep. If somebody's on meth, which I fought somebody on meth. Yeah, they go to sleep. It takes them a while. And they will get up like this, like they'll come back out and like, like, I need meth. Yeah, dude. Oh my god.
So that's the first thing they say when they wake up is I need more meth.
Sometimes.
Damn. Mindfulness training and jiu-jitsu. I like it.
I think Noodles just used to volunteer as a cop.
Oh, did he? Oh,
He
nice.
needs to, though.
Oh, okay.
Got fantasies of
Choking out a meth head?
yeah.
Dude, oh my god, man. Meth is cheap and it's
Plentiful.
and it's sad.
It's good and sad. Good and sad.
Good. Depending on
All right. Join us next week for Jamie's intervention.
meth is bad.
Jamie's been doing meth over there the whole time, by the way.
It's how he stays awake. He runs to school, man.
So for those students, if they did need to, like, let's say somebody grabs somebody and you gotta use your rear bear hug defense. You give somebody the old Tani Otoshi and you drop them on the floor, right? And they let go and you stand up and you defended yourself.
Yeah.
Are you gonna be in trouble with the police?
So, Tomanagi?
Tani Otoshi,
Toshi?
the rear
Which one was
sweep,
that one?
the rear. From the
No.
like from the bear hug, right? They step behind you, drop.
Oh
you down.
yeah. Are you going to be in trouble? No.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, what if you hip toss somebody that's trying to choke you? Like, they grab you around the neck, you give them the old hip toss down.
So my thing is, like, all right, depending on who's around, right? As witnesses, because that's evidence. So we need people.
If you don't get caught, it wasn't illegal.
Yeah, that too. If nobody calls the cops and you take off, especially in Denver, because we're like, nobody's here. All right, on to the next.
Gotta go.
Yeah, so getting out of there. But no, I mean, it's just being able to explain yourself and explain why you took that action. You know, I felt in fear of my life because this person grabbed me in a way that I felt was threatening. Like, this person was trying to choke me and trying to put me unconscious. So this is what I did. I train in this martial art, and this is exactly what I did. I grabbed onto their arms and just kind of brick by brick and step by step explain exactly what you did and what you did up until the point that the threat is done, right? I would not advocate, like, if somebody's already done, like, hey, I gave up, is not continuing to throw punches until they're unconscious, because now you're going to be in trouble.
But if it's just the two of you there, then it's you said, he said.
So you should not
he said,
raccoon your opponent.
No, depends. Depends, man.
Undergarments?
But if it's a he said, or they said, he said situation, it's like, again, somebody who can communicate, like the officer can communicate and understand, like, hey, this person, what they're telling me is pretty articulate, and it's in line with what the situation appears as when even we first got the call. Because, if it's just the two of us, like, who's going to be calling 911 unless it's somebody who already witnessed it or saw it? It might be a third party who's like, hey, there's a fight. I don't want any contact. We should be contacting them, like, hey, what exactly did you see? Because I'm getting conflicting stories. Sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't. But most often than not, if we can tell, like, all right, this seems like pretty in line with what I believe has occurred, and versus what a vague statement of, like, oh man, this dude, like, he wants my money. He said he wanted to sell me drugs, and I tried to choke him out first, and because I've seen that. Yeah, people try to.
I was going to turn him into you guys.
Yeah. I see that.
Citizens arrest.
That happens, man, and we've got to, like, sift through what people are saying, observe their body language, and see what lines up. Like, look for video. Like, there's ring cameras and there's security videos all over the place. So yeah, just step by step, man. Don't be the aggressor either, like, at all. Like, again, this martial art is self-defense, so I'm not gonna be wanting to start a fight at all. Don't take things personal. Like, if I'm out with my significant other and somebody's talking shit to my significant other, I'm not gonna go up and be like, what the fuck is up? Like, like, try to instigate anything.
Sure.
Like, it might be swallowing your ego, and it might sting a little. Like, and I've been there. Like, did I let this person disrespect my significant other, or just respect me? You have to think about things in terms of, like, am I hurt, or, like, am I going to the hospital, or, like, am I going to be able to live another day, or live another day without any injuries, and we're all going to be good? Or do I want to live my day with my hurt ego, and I had to prove myself because I'm like, oh, no, I'm not a bitch. Like, can't be talking shit to me, because I know jiu-jitsu.
Tough guy with your honor intact in a jail cell.
You're not gonna be a terrible person if you don't. In my opinion.
Well, it's good to stay humble.
Yeah, for sure. Don't let people know you know jiu-jitsu until they need to know.
Yeah.
Like a dark horse or something.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bulldog knocked his friend out in the alleyway. Did I ever tell you this story? Did he ever tell you this? He was walking home he used to work at the bars. He'd walk home through the alleyways. And this is in Boulder, like, no great den of crime. But his friend thought it'd be funny to, like, run up behind him and put him in a chokehold. And he ran up behind him, put his arm around his neck, and he grabbed his arms and he tossed him. And his head hit the concrete and got knocked out. And he was like,
Yeah, be prepared for concrete. Too. It's not. It's not conducive to grappling at all. Like, anytime we go to the ground, it's the one thing, like, that will run through my head is, like,
that's concrete right there. Land on top.
I'm gonna be, like,
land on top,
scraping my knees and scraping my elbows, but, like, whatever, dude. I gotta control it. I guess.
Yeah.
You remember Carl?
Yeah. Arvada cop, right?
Yeah. We had a student who was a police officer in Arvada, and he's gigantic. He was a strength and conditioning coach for the Chicago Bears.
Oh yeah. He was like judo too. Like,
yeah, he was a judo black belt, and he was a jiu-jitsu purple belt. Yeah. But he said one time he was chasing a guy, some kind of robbery or something, and he was chasing the guy down the sidewalk, and he got close enough, went over both arms and grabbed him and tackled him. But as he did, both of his hands were underneath the guy.
Yeah,
So he
they're
tackles him. Yeah, tackled. And then they drag, right? They slide on the ground. So he had a good, foot of slide on both of his hands with the weight of two people on him. And both of his hands were just like shredded for a few weeks. Concrete's not fun. Don't fight on the street.
But that guy's face.
Yeah, he was not pretty going into jail.
Yeah, that's another thing I think about too. Is like if somebody's running, I catch up to them. I try to do at least like a pretty decent trip. I'm not trying to tackle somebody because I don't want to scrape across the concrete. Which sometimes I think I need to do. Like I need to control this person's hips, but I'll do like a foot sweep, and they're like,
work on your foot sweeps.
They'll be fucking toppling all over, and I'm like, oh, nice, knee on belly. I'll go straight into knee on belly, and then they'll fetal position, like scoop their arms out. I'm like, all right. Yeah, concrete, man. Oh, that hurts. If you can avoid it.
Just a little patch of grass would be great.
Oh, yeah, let's move over to the grass. I could deal with grass stains, man.
Yeah.
That's right. In the Air Force, when we would do drills and stuff, I would always volunteer to be the bad guy. Because I knew it would take like at least 2 of them to get me in handcuffs.
Oh, yeah.
But I also gave away the game every time because I wouldn't fight back until we were on the grass.
Nice.
So I'd like fight just enough to break contact and then get to the grass, and then I would turn around and resist.
Nice. Fight smarter, not harder.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Cops. Well, Jamie, how are we doing on time?
About an hour and a half right there.
About an hour and a half.
Dang.
Cool.
All right. Cool. Any big points we still haven't? Yeah. Should we talk about racism? Or has it been too heavy already?
It's been pretty
Big
heavy.
Cab, BLM. Who's the local guy? Elijah McClain?
Oh,
Poor
yeah,
kid.
that was
fucking
a terrible
sad.
situation, yeah.
Did not need to happen at all.
No, that contact shouldn't have happened to begin with. In my opinion, like, again, I don't know, man. Again, my views, but I mean, officers. I mean, we operate per the Constitution, what person's rights are. Well, a lot of times it doesn't happen. So this kid gets called in as a suspicious party. Like, what is he doing? It's suspicious. Oh, he's got his jacket on, his hood over his head. Suspicious. Like,
Is it?
Living
Right,
in America while black?
You live in an urban area, and you see all kinds of weird stuff. So please articulate how this is suspicious. And for us to stop somebody for reasonable suspicion, we got to have some kind of suspicion that this person may about to commit a crime or has. Like what did this kid do to warrant that contact? I don't know. Even if if the officers knew jiu-jitsu and overstepped their bounds, it's not a good contact. But if they knew jiu-jitsu may have gone a different way, But
If they had made contact and they'd gone way overboard with a hands-on contact, right? Like let's say they popped his shoulder out of place.
Oh, really?
No. I'm just saying.
Oh, okay.
If that were the case, right? Let's say they only used jiu-jitsu and went crazy overboard and dislocated his shoulder.
Yeah. For what? For what contact?
That would have been bad news, and somebody should have got fired over that. But
You're still alive.
that's a kid with a displaced shoulder who will get better. Yeah, he's still alive. It's okay, and somebody's gonna get fired and blah 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 blah. Right? As it went now, they didn't use jiu-jitsu.
No.
That young man is dead.
Sadly.
Right, and like it blows my mind that, for one thing, that every police officer has a gun. That seems absurd to me, but it blows my mind that people go to the gun right away.
Yeah. As far as officer going to the gun.
Yeah.
Person, yeah.
Yeah, I mean the officers. It's
being in that situation, I've been in tussles like that, you know, and it's also goes, and I don't know those officers training. I don't know what. From what I've seen and what I've gathered, the information I read, absolutely, like I was like, this is terrible, but it runs contrary to the popular officer opinion of like, oh no, those guys are good, like they did what they needed to. Like I don't know, but to me, it was bad, and their articulation for it was this person went for my gun and tried to take my gun out of my holster. Now I'm using the carotid to neutralize the situation, which they applied it. I don't know. I can't remember, but they applied it. He, I think, passed out, or they used it. But then they ended up having the paramedics come in and administer a huge amount of ketamine.
What? What for?
What it'll do is like it'll calm them down. Yeah, it'll like let make them less tense and less combative.
Yeah, it's a tranquilizer.
Yeah, that's
Literally a tranquilizer.
Y'all fools need to chill.
Okay.
But dude, what was I going on? But all right, so I've been in those tussles where, and again, this might be my training, like some, and I've seen it, and I know the desperation. I've seen the desperation in people when in a tussle with the cops and them trying to get away. I've had people reach for whatever is on me because I'm the nearest person to them, and they're just reaching for whatever to escape. But again, every situation is usually different. My experience has been whenever somebody's gone to something that's on my belt, I've never seen it in their eyes or never seen it in their body that it's because they wanted to take my gun out and shoot me. And I've been in encounters where people wanted to absolutely hurt me, and it's a different look. It's absolute determination in their eyes that, like, this is the action that I want to take. I want to hurt this person, and I'm gonna take these actions because I'm determined to do this. I have people reach for stuff on my belt. I'm like, okay, like I'll sweep the hands out of the way. But again, with that training and the sensibility to know, like, the way that they're acting, the way they look in their face, and their way that they're kind of resisting at this point in time it's not to the level of deadly force. They're not trying to kill me.
Also, I mean, were these officers not carrying like triple retention holsters like they're supposed to?
Yeah, well, it's not a requirement to have like a level 3 retention. It depends on the department. Some people will just have a level 1 retention, which is just no retention at all, other than just basically pushing the button on the holster and the gun comes out.
I like a leather holster with a snap.
Nice.
That's a level 1.
Yeah. I reckon.
Single retention.
And again, just speaking to that, it's like I feel like a lot of the times it's just that just the minimum amount of training and the fear that somebody's like going for something and they're just touching on something on your belt, again on your gun. Even if in that situation, if McLean was just reaching like because he wanted to escape and his hand landed on the gun, I don't know. I feel like a lot of officers that don't have a lot of training in that kind of situation, like rolling around in a grappling situation, will fear that fear. Like, oh my God, it's deadly force. Like,
yeah.
It's bad.
Yeah.
We did lots of gun retention stuff, and we would do like rolling scenarios, with a partner on your back who's trying to take your gun, and it was like my favorite thing to reach down and tap the person's gun. Right? 'Cause I could just like literally baby tap it, and they would go bananas, and both hands would drop down to their hip, thinking about their gun.
And
then I'm like, cool, neither hand is around your neck. I don't need your gun to take you out. And yeah, I think it's just so weighty. There's so much gravity to a firearm in a conflict that like it takes exceptional training not to be just automatically focused on that firearm. And so, I mean, I get where police would say that was impetus enough to escalate, but not to that level.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah, I feel like I don't know enough about that incident. I gotta go do some reading now.
Yeah. It's a sad one. It's a really sad one.
he's a 17-year-old kid.
Yeah, he's young.
Anyway. Anyway,
On that lovely note,
right. We did, however, have some good advice for staying safe and for
Yeah.
articulation is the key to legality, just in case you ever need to defend yourself out there in the world.
meditate and train jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Street smarts,
Street smarts.
awareness out in the world.
Yep.
Swallow your pride.
Yeah. What else? Just train, man. Just keep coming back. Even
Out the front knives are still illegal in the city of Denver.
yes, that too.
Just side note.
I'm gonna toss that one out there, even though we talked about it before the podcast. But like public service announcement.
Yeah.
Okay. So we did have a word of the day. So make sure you leave the word of the day in the comments. Also, there was a fourth mystery guest on this podcast. And if you can screenshot that guest, send it to us, and there will be prizes involved, etc.
As always, leave any comments, any questions, any thoughts, anything we can do better. Any feedback helps. Any likes, any shares, any of that good stuff. Thank you so much for coming out, Professor. Thank you so much for coming out as well.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah.
No, again, thank you guys. Thanks for the Dark Horse family, and thank you to the students that make us. So
Yeah,
For
boom.
sure.
Let's do this again. Break on 3. 1, 2, 3.